today. And we're going to get started right away. I don't want to waste any time, but did you guys see that really awesome new intro that we have? Did you catch anything special from it? If not, maybe take a look after we're done today and go back and watch it again. But we've got some fascinating stuff for you today. We are going to review the Avatar trailer. If you didn't see it yesterday, we're going to roll it right now, and then I'll be back with some awesome guests, and we'll talk about what's happening today. And welcome back. So there you go. That is the first time I think we've showed the in-game footage of the new Avatar, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. We'll talk about it later today in Discord as well. But let's get to the action. I'd like to introduce our guest today, and we'll talk about what we're talking about. It's the man you know and you love, our CEO and creative director, JC. And of course, what would a stream be without the amazing Entropy as well? Gentlemen, welcome.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
So today we've got some specific topics we're going to go over, and I just want to let you guys know we are going to take some questions at the end of the stream. We are asking that you keep your questions on topic for these categories. So today we're going to talk about the Avatar that we just watched. We're going to talk about the new business model that you've heard some about. We're going to discuss a little bit about Lua, and of course, PvP. JC, take it away.
Yeah, well, first maybe a few words about the new character you've just seen. I'm absolutely impressed by the quality and the look of this avatar. I hope you like it too. I just wanted to put a bit of perspective on what's going to come after that. This is, the first step towards revamping this. There's a lot of things we need to do in terms of outfits. We will actually, introduce different version of this avatar in the future, not for beta, but after. That you will be able to use, and we will add also more customization to it. Not only the colors. For the moment, you can select the colors, different parts of the avatar colors, so that you can customize it. But we're going to add more to that. It's just the first step for beta, and then after that, we have more work to do. But anyway, I find it super cool. I hope you like it, and that's our new avatar, your new look in the game. And we also have changed animations, and there's a lot of things that you will see have evolved with this new avatar. So, yeah, that's it.
That sounds great. So for you guys that, if you're watching right now, you'll see on stream we're showing some of the color changes that you can make with that avatar as well. They're pretty awesome. Okay, so moving on from that, let's go into the business model, and I think we have something to show you guys just to better explain and understand what we're doing and where we're going with that.
Yeah, the key question we often have with the business model, is why do we have subscription? And that's something we have answered in length, in the past, because we have this new technology that allows you to be all together inside the same world at the same time. It's a technology that requires powerful servers, and we need a way to finance that. So that's simple as that. We cannot make a free-to-play. We cannot just have a buy-to-play and then we're done, because the cost of running this technology is not neglectable. So we need people to actually finance the development and the operations of this. So the subscription model, we believe, is the best model that supports the game. What is new compared to what we might have said before is the price. The price is way lower than it used to be planned to, and that actually makes it way more affordable. If you look at the price, of the overall expense for 1 year, it's not much more than it's actually the same as a AAA game. So for 1 year of fun, that's a kind of good value that you can get. So that put things in perspective about this business model. We understand that not everybody likes it. Well, that's the way it works for us for the moment. And there was also other questions regarding why do we have a minimum of 3 months? Well, this is a way for us to bootstrap, the financing and getting, the sales to support the development of the game. Remember, we are still in beta and we still have a lot of work to do. So this is just, in the future, of course, you will be able to pay per month as you want. But just as the beta launches, we've put a minimal amount that corresponds to a minimal commitment to try and join the beta and participate in the game. So that's let's say the short answer for the business model. There have been a lot of FAQ written on why we choose that particular model, why not free to play, and certain questions like that. It's related also to the nature of the game, that is a persistent universe where everything is editable. And we believe that, at least, as a first step, we'll see in the future, but we believe that it's important that the people who are joining this show a little bit of commitment. It's not something you go for, your Saturday evening just to go around and see what's going on. We want people to be committed. And that's why we also think that the business model that we have is actually helping, so that, we'll see how it turns out, and we'll see in the future how maybe this can evolve. So that was it for the business model. And I think we should talk about PvP now.
Yeah, sure. So we'll have a bunch of questions that we're going to answer, but the first thing that I want to sort of talk about for PvP is the bugs and sort of the general stability of PvP. So we're aware that this has been an ongoing issue. We have spent a lot of time actually working on these issues: the crashes, the desyncs, the radar not functioning properly, the invalid parameters on the weapons firing. So obviously we know about all these issues, and we've been working very hard on them. And in the very best of cases, they are all fixed. We very much hope that they are all fixed. But if there's any issues left, we'll keep working on them. We know that PvP stability is a very big issue for us, and we want to make sure that you guys get as clean and as stable an experience in PvP. And losing a ship or dying due to bugs and instability and server crashes is definitely not fun, and it's not what we want. So this is going to be an ongoing subject for us. We've been spending time, and we will spend more time if that's needed. A couple of extra questions here in regards to PvP, which are a little bit less on the bug side. A little question about salvaging. So what will salvaging be like? So the current iteration of the game has sort of a first version of salvaging, in the sense that you can go out and salvage abandoned ships, mostly from PvP. So if ships were destroyed during PvP with destroyed core units, you can sort of go out to those ships, either strip them for materials or elements, or repair them and take them and capture them if that's what you want to do. Going further, we will have more opportunities for salvaging. Notably, we have what we're calling garbage collecting, which is going to be a way in which abandoned constructs that have owners, but essentially abandoned constructs, either from players who have left the game or from players who just aren't interested in that construct anymore, and maybe they just left them behind and they don't care about them anymore. Those players will have a path towards finding themselves to be unowned, and then other players will be able to salvage those constructs and get the materials, get the loot, get whatever is in the containers if there's anything there. And we're essentially looking for more opportunities potentially to populate the world with abandoned constructs, whether those are players or maybe even sometimes non-player constructs. Another question that I have here about static constructs and the viability of static constructs and the ability of static constructs to defend themselves, and sort of how that works in that ecosystem. The answer for this one is it's all linked to the territory warfare. We're going to have this eventually, probably not for beta, but we're going to have territorial warfare, and essentially everything static related is going to be for territorial warfare, and that's when we'll start having shields and timers and all that sort of stuff to be able to defend your statics from attacks. Finally here, my last question for this part is about global PvP. So one is global PvP. So global PvP right now is planned for beta. So you guys will have that for beta. So just to be clear, that is still space only. So we will not have PvP on planets, but everywhere in space will be, good to go for PvP. So we're getting that set up right now, and it seems to be working just fine on our internal servers. Right now, we're sort of working out the kinks and figuring out, exactly where the save zones are going to be, figuring out where and how far these save zones are going to be, if we want to have them surround Aliot or maybe even multiple planets. That's sort of what we're looking at right now. But for the most part, PvP will be open in the entirety of space, and that's going to be for beta. I think we're moving on to our next subject here about Lua, JC.
Yes, let's talk about Lua. And we'll get back to the question of PvP at the end. There's a bunch of questions that are sort of, recurring, coming very often in the community, and we picked some of those, and I will probably, complement what you just said by adding some more. But before that, a word about Lua scripting, which has been a topic where I think we should put more efforts, and I think everybody would agree on that. The sad truth is that, I'm mainly, implementing this part of the game when I have time. So, it's kind of clear that I don't, this feature doesn't deserve enough of what it should actually be receiving in terms of attention. So we are going to hire some people to work on that continuously. There's tons of things we can add to Lua. We all agree. So we got a lot of feedback, and we take note of all those things. We also have a lot of things we plan to do that are in the backlog, if you want, that we're going to address. So Lua needs a lot of love. There's a lot of quick win we could add. We all know about being able to inspect your containers, maybe able to automate certain things that are related to RDMS and all sorts of things like that. It makes a lot of sense. So we're going to address that. Sort of, don't worry, but we reason, in the perspective of the beta, this is not the most critical part of the game. That doesn't break the game or anything like that. So we're going to take care of that later, and we're going to hire people to dedicate full time to that. Basically, there's a lot of things to do. So that's about it for Lua. I just mentioned again relative to Lua and PvP that we're working on this transponder feature that will allow you to select who can see certain ships during battle through Lua, and so you could automate certain things relative to the ships that that actually authorize you to track them and track their position. Presumably not the enemy, so you cannot automate the orientation of your ship towards them. But anyway, so we found a good solution for that. This is one example of the many things we have to address with Lua, and definitely not the last one. Yeah, so that was it about Lua. I think we can move, before we go to the live Q&A, as I said, we've picked a bunch of questions and actually have the list here in front of me, so I'm going to browse through them. We would like to answer all of them, but it would take a lot of time. Mostly, we have had feedbacks about an interesting idea, when you build a static construct on the ground, will it be visible simply when you press V? You see all the constructs around you. That prevents the possibility of having hidden underground bases. Yes, we're thinking about a way to make that possible, to sort of hide your base if it's underground. It might actually use this transponder feature that we are developing. So this is something we're thinking about. It will make a lot of sense. It will be very interesting. So that's one of the things that will not come for beta for sure, but after, might be something we address. There's a lot of questions about when is PvP going to be global. So you answered that just before. What I want to say, and that covers actually a lot of questions related to PvP. Keep in mind that the current version of PvP, the one you're going to have for beta, is really a first iteration. There is a lot of things to do on PvP. Adding more depth to the gameplay itself, as in space, with the shields, with all the electronic countermeasures, and all the things that spice a little bit the strategic side of things. There's also the fact that we want to make it possible for people in a fighter to be able, basically, to lock and fire on something based on the reticular in their cockpit, so they could just have a much more immersive experience. It's not going to be dogfight in a real-time sense, but it will feel a bit more like it. So this kind of things that we have in the in the pipe, that's going to be addressed at some point. And of course, there is the PvP on the surface of planets. That is still a huge part that is going to come after beta. And as I said, there's the avatar versus avatar. I mean, we are maybe at 10% of that topic. It's really just the first iteration, so that we have something in the game to start with. But don't be surprised if you see that there are certain things obviously missing. We know that, and we're just going to work on them after beta and as time goes on to actually get the full experience of PvP in the game. And I take also the opportunity to mention that PvP is not the goal of Dual Universe, right? There's a lot of other things that you can do in Dual Universe. PvP is one means to achieve certain things you want to do in the game. But by no means is it the only one. And I suspect there will be a fair number of people in the game playing without ever touching PvP at all. So Just to put things in perspective, it's not the number one feature. It's not like the core feature. It's not what the game is all about. And if you compare to certain other space games where it's much more about that, I think Journeyverse is very different from that perspective. Doesn't mean we're not going to put a lot of love in PvP. We love PvP, but I mean, you have to know that there are all other features, that sort of compete for the time to be addressed that we need to also cover, because it's a global game that involves a lot of different activities. So that was to cover. I think most of the questions relative to PvP. There's questions about bugs that you can target ships inside ships and so on. Of course, this is going to be addressed. Let me see also. Damaging voxels don't damage nearby element. This is not supposed to be the case. I mean, we probably have fixed that already. So yeah, most of the bugs you've seen are probably already covered. We're going to be covered pretty soon. There was a bunch of questions related to RDMS also. There's this question about in general, there's a big question about intellectual property. When you do blueprints, you want to be safe on the fact that you can sell the product of those blueprints without people being able to reverse engineer another blueprint out of it. So we've put a first mechanism in that direction. So just the owner, the creator, of the blueprint is able to use it and to make blueprints out of the resulting constructs. We definitely need to put that under the RDMS, so the right management system. This is not the case. And we need to address the problem of voxel copying, which is a complicated problem because, you can add your own voxels to the construct you bought. So there's a mix of things that belongs to you and things that belongs to the original creator. It's a difficult topic to address but we're gonna do something about it. So this is part of an ongoing and actually pretty big topic around making the business of selling constructs from blueprints you have created a viable option in the game. And we believe it's very important because it should be possible for any player, who doesn't really care about building that much to just go and buy a ship or a construct or whatever. So that's a key, very important things, and we're working on that. So there's questions also about allowing, questions relative to orgs and RDMS. I suspect there are some bugs hidden behind those questions that, the RDMS is all meant to allow you as an organization to create groups of players that could actually include organizations inside those groups that will be granted certain rights. So we've seen those questions, and it looks like there's a bug, or perhaps some things lacking on the ergonomy, so that it's not clear how to use it or something like that. So we're going to look into that. But most of the questions relative to the RDMS, relative to organizations, normally should be addressed pretty quickly. We know that organizations don't have wallets, and that's a big issue. So this is also something we need to address. Probably we won't have time to do that for beta for the wallet, but it's going to come after. In general, an organization should be, like a player. It should have a wallet. It has constructs. It can own stuff. It has the RDMS, etc. So that's something we're going to address probably very shortly after the beta. One word I think also for you, Baptiste, that you can take it about the territory unit mechanism. So this is sort of unrelated to PvP and RDMS, but it's really specific to the problem of territory unit proliferation.
Yeah, so this has been a little bit of a head scratcher for us. This sort of goes back all the way back to the griefing concerns around territories, where people would be able to dig under your base, and how do we sort of deal with that issue and have a consistent and sort of good approach to how territories work. So we sort of have a first iteration of what we want to do. I'm going to be very specific because I think this is quite important, and we do want feedback on this because it's entirely possible that we don't have it perfectly right. So the basic approach, the basic idea here is that there's going to be a new restriction on putting down static core units on planets, which is that you won't be able to put down static core units unless you own the territory. That's the first part. The second part to that is that because of that, territory units will go down significantly in price. So exactly where they'll end up is more of a balancing concern, but it'll be significantly cheaper. I think today they're at level 5. You can imagine that they'll be at least level 2, if not lower. So in order to be able to put down a static core, you'll have an easier access to a territory unit in that situation. But in addition, sort of the going down that rabbit hole, the next issue that we sort of started running into is, okay, well, now that territory units are very cheap and easily accessible to everyone, how do we deal with sort of territory spam? And that can also be used for griefing. That can also be used to just take up a whole large amount of land. And until we have territory warfare, players can't fight for territories, which means that once you have them, you just have them. So we needed sort of a stopgap measure. We needed something in place to be able to deal with that situation. And so there's going to be a tax. There's going to be a fee, which is going to be exponential. And the more territories that you take per entity, so that could be a player, that could be an organization. The more territories that you take per entity, that cost is going to get bigger and bigger. So again, go ahead.
Not going to be exponential, but probably quadratic, or at least linear in the surface, because exponential would be too violent.
Sure. I mean, it depends.
But it's going to grow. The more territory you already have deployed, and the more it's going to cost.
Yeah. And so we hope that this sort of approach makes sense and sort of fixes a lot of these issues where now it's convenient and even easy to own your own territory, and you can put down your own static cores and no one's going to bother you because now you have RDMS control over your own territory, so people can't just come in and dig and ruin your day. And territory units are now affordable, where maybe in a couple hours of grinding or mining and selling some minerals, you could be able to afford one and sort of take a territory. And then if you're only taking one territory, the fee would be either extremely cheap or maybe even free. So that wouldn't be a barrier to you taking a territory. It would only be when you start sort of taking more and more territory and you're starting to be a very big organization, or maybe you're just a very rich player, that it would start being a problem on cost. So there's a lot of balancing. There's a lot of like nitpicky stuff, but at least that's our first approach here to sort of try to deal with all these issues. And we're looking for feedback on this. Watching forward to you guys trying it out and see what happens and if that sort of works out.
Yeah, in the future, we might actually revert the decision when, in fact, there is territory warfare, and there is, which is going to come way after, but I mean, the idea of being able to trade territory tiles, so there's a market for that, and the fact that there will be some maintenance costs. So you cannot just have tons of territories if you can't afford them, basically. That would create a pressure for people to say, hey, I have all these territories. It was fun at the beginning to get all of things because I thought it was something I wanted to do. But now I realize it cost me a lot of money and I'm going to sell them. And then, you have a dynamics that is much more emergent, much more intrinsic to the game that we would prefer actually to having taxes, which is a sort of a brutal way to deal with the issue. But we have to do that, now, so that we can make both, territory affordable and not absurdly proliferating everywhere. I shall mention also that in the beta, you won't be given a territory at the beginning. A standard territory unit, but you will be given a sanctuary territory unit, just one, that you will be encouraged very strongly to go and use on the first sanctuary moon of Alioth. So that you go there, we're going to have a shuttle service to get you there, so you don't necessarily need to have a ship to start with for that particular, need. And you go on that sanctuary moon, and you can, claim your territory, and that's your home. And that's really very easy, and that's the first thing I think every player should do, because you need to have a safe haven, some place where you can leave your stuff. For example, if you go on vacation or whatever, and you're out of the game for 3 weeks, you need a place where you can put your stuff and be absolutely sure that nothing's going to happen to them. And that's the role and the goal of the Sanctuary Moons and the Sanctuary Territory unit. Then after that, you might want to conquer some, real estate on Alioth or other planets. That's a different story. It's different need that will be part of your game experience. Whether you decide to do that or not, it's just up to you. You don't have to. Yeah.
Just I saw a comment in the Twitch chat there. Just to address that real quick, there will be a warm-up timer to the territory unit when you put it down, so it's not instantly active. There is right now the setting is at 15 minutes. It's something that we can modify if it needs to be more or less. So if you have people that are mining in that hex, they will be aware that someone has just claimed that territory, and they'll have enough time to leave before potentially digging gets locked down through RDMS. So hopefully that addresses the hostage situation taking, where people were being forced to control K to get out of their holes because now they couldn't dig. So.
Yeah, and I just saw a question or comment in the chat that is a perfect transition to the other questions that we had about the market bots and the economy that is not working well. So this is addressed definitely, and the reason why we have these issues is that there was a problem in balancing the frequency of the different ores in the mining. So normally, between let's say tier 2 and tier 3, or tier 3 and tier 4, you should have a very, important difference in how difficult it is to get them. We are thinking of a factor 5 in the difficulty, so that you really have a progression, of the different tiers. It's not quite well done at the moment in the version you've been playing, and this is currently fixed in the version we're working on. So the point is that a tier 5 is going to be way more difficult than a tier 4, than a tier 3, and so on and so on. That being said, the prices of those different ores that are calculated as a model based on the time it takes to get them, to start somewhere, we have to have an estimate, if you want, is what we use to put the bots. And the logic is that those bots, they should have a large spread on the markets. That means that they're buying at ridiculously low price, and they're selling at super high price, so that it's very easy for an honest trader to do better than them. So that's when the spread is going to slowly shrink, and we're going to hit the market equilibrium price. We just try to make sure that we are not, that the bots are going to be across that equilibrium price, so that it can actually converge towards it as people are actually using the market. So it should be fixed. In the case where we still observe issues with the bots, we're going to limit them to probably tier 1 elements and tier 1 ores. The point of the bots at the moment, and this is also going to change in the future, but at the moment, is to provide a way to inject money in the economy in a simple way, right? So, but that's going to change. Hopefully, we can unplug all the bots, in fact, and we inject economy through other mechanisms. But this is a complicated topic that we didn't address fully for the moment. So right now, we believe we're going to fix this issue with the bots. It's basically a problem of procedural generation of the ores. That's the underlying issue, and we got that covered. So that was also, there's a lot of questions about that, so I wanted to mention that point.
I think an interesting way of looking at it here for this particular issue, especially for the level 5s that you were able to sell for quite a lot of quanta at bots, is that it sort of revealed to us that it was probably a little bit too viable right now to mine level 5 materials. So our expectation is that level 5 materials are quite rare, and finding a level 5 node is, not necessarily exceptional. Finding the right word is maybe a little bit weird, but it's something that's quite difficult. You have to work for it, and it takes an extended period of time, and maybe you even have to coordinate in a group. So being able to sort of go to a level 5, go down to the right depth, and find one within, we know the timing's 30 minutes to 40 minutes, whatever that is, that was probably a little bit too fast. And so the fact that people could do that was a very good indication to us that these nodes weren't quite rare enough. And so that was very good info, essentially, to address that problem.
And that's valid. I mean, there's a lot of other questions, but we can cover everything, and I think it's better than we move now to the real-time Q&A. So I've seen a lot of questions in the chat. Please ask again, so that now we can actually answer. If you ask a question like 5 or 10 minutes ago, I think it's going to be lost. But if you want, let's do this.
Okay, so we have our first question coming in from Covan Dual Universe, and it says, I would like to gift the monthly subscription to a friend. Am I able to do this in-game during beta?
there's a referral program that is going to be put in place so that you can refer friends that can access the game. There's also, if you buy today, for example, an alpha supporter pack, you get beta access key that you can gift to other people. And then, yes, we need to have mechanisms that allows you to basically gift an access to the game. And we're working on that. It's a big topic. And right now, I think the simplest way to do it would be to buy an alpha supporter pack. And by the way, I remind you that these are going to go soon. So if you want to actually not pay any subscription whatsoever during beta, that's a good moment to actually go and grab one of those alpha packs. It's not necessary as well. I mean, if you want to pay, because they're at 60 euros, $60. If you want to pay less, just taste it for 3 months. It's going to be cheaper. So that's completely okay. But if you kind of know you want to play for a long time, just go and get those alpha packs. Anyway, so yeah, we're working on that. We understand it's very important, and it's part of the things we're going to address.
Here's a big question that we keep getting. It's, will the game be wiped after beta, or is beta more of a soft launch?
Okay, so about the what is clear is that whatever you do after beta, when beta starts, is going to stay in a way or another. So there are something that we're going to work on, which is, well, we wanted to actually put new planets, with gorgeous, really good graphics that are coming, but it's not quite ready for beta. So there will be an upgrade of the planets that will take place somewhere after the beta. But we're going to grant you all your constructs. We're going to be, some of them will have to be removed because, we will generate a new planet. But you will get what we call, for the moment, we call that magic blueprints, so that you have a blueprint with sort of everything included in it. So you'll be able to respawn those things as soon as we start the server. So we don't like to call wipe. It's more like a planet upgrade sort of thing that's going to come. But the key thing is that the beta is really the start. If you want to start to invest yourself in the game, you can go. And guarantee that you're not going to be losing everything. At some point we say, oh, sorry, the universe is blank again, and you have to start from scratch. So that's a very important thing, because we need people to be not just testing the game anymore. The beta is going to be now about fixing bugs, polishing, but it's also a fully playable version of the game. So maybe we can call that a soft launch if you want. But
we've got a lot of people with the Lua are concerned about protecting their codes. This is from Insurrecti. Yeah. Is there a good operating script that can be the differential between one particular ship brand? So I guess they're wondering what type of protections we'll be able to offer for those.
Yeah, well, sad news is that nothing will be done for beta because it's in the Lua realm, and we don't have that much time for that at the moment. But yes, we're going to deal with that. There are several things we're going to do. The first is that you're not going to get the Lua code unless you execute it. That's the first thing. And we're going to look into ways to obfuscate that so that you can actually have non-open source Lua if you want, so that people can use your Lua code but cannot access it. So this is going to be done. Now it's decided if you want. Not for beta, but we're going to look into that because, again, we understand it's part of the necessity to preserve intellectual property and to have actually the market, in the real, market, in the real world. If you don't protect intellectual property, you don't get a flourishing economy. So that's a fundamental thing that needs to be addressed. So yes, but not in beta, unfortunately.
Going back to the TCUs, we have a question from Twitch Text: is how can you have hidden bases now that the TCU is required for statics, yet TCUs are visible from the world map? Yeah,
that's a good point. Now that's a really good point. The first thing is that a tile is pretty large, right? So if you have hidden your base maybe 5 kilometers underground, it's not that easy to find it. But granted, I mean, that is like an indication that there's something there. It's also true for mining, by the way. Suppose you find a really rare ore and you want to prevent people from mining it. You put a territory and you set the rights so that you're the only one allowed to mine it. Fine, but then also you put a flag that there's maybe something interesting over there. So I don't think we should have hidden territories because it's sort of a statement that you have a nation or something somewhere. It has to be sort of visible. But we're going to see if an ID comes for that, but it's possible that yes, if you have a hidden base, then yeah, your territory is going to tell it. But if you have a lot of territories around, maybe it's getting very hard to know where exactly the base is. It gives sort of a counter measure against complete capacity to hide. I think it's good that if you hide, there's also a way for offenders to sort of descramble your hiding if you want. So like you create a sort of an arm race, and maybe that's not so bad. In fact, that you have to basically surround your territory with a lot of other tiles so that you sort of make it difficult to find where exactly it is. But it's a good point.
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. Just to pile on that a little bit, I think we always have options to see what you give and what you get in these sorts of situations. So right now, when you take a territory, it's actually quite powerful. Even right now in the game, giving you full RDMS access is quite a powerful tool to be able to secure that territory. And then when combat comes to territories, having a territory will obviously give you certain advantages in combat. So I think we could think of options where you give up a little bit of that power, and maybe that allows you to gain something else. So for example, if your priority was to stay hidden, maybe you could say, okay, well, maybe I'm going to give up certain combat, buffs. But my advantage is that I'm going to be hidden on the map, and maybe if only someone just actually shows up to my territory, they'll be able to see that it's owned. But on the map, maybe they won't see it, and then there's maybe a bit of a give and take there. But we'll have to see exactly how that works out.
And finding people is a big topic that you guys ask a lot of questions about. And I'm going to lead into Datel's question, which is, how do you know who's your enemy in a fight? How does the friend-foe system work? And what happens if you're part of multiple organizations?
To you, Baptiste.
Yeah, I guess I'll take this one. So a big part of that is an expansion of the mark system, which is the 3D visualization that you have in space. So as with a lot of things, and maybe you guys are getting tired of hearing that, but that was sort of a first version, sort of getting that out and working. The intention was always with marks to be able to tell who you were in an organization with, who was your friend, potentially who is an enemy, and being able to set that, and being able to set a specific organization as an enemy, and then it would show up differently on the mark. So those are the sort of things that we're looking at, and in certain cases are done but not quite ready, to be able to tell sort of like on a big battlefield, potentially with a lot of ships, who your friends are and who your enemies are, and essentially the marks and that 3D system is our main gateway to be able to provide that information.
Just bounce on the question. So yes, there will be huge veins in the new generation of ores. That's going to be cool. So you can sit on a real gold mine. That's something we wanted to do really. So yes. And the questions about the solar system, the planets, and procedural generation. So there's a mix of fully procedural. It's very easy to spawn a planet if we want to. But if we want to make it more special, we have tools so we can customize it and make it more, less generic, let's say. So we can have a mixed, strategy of spawning new systems way after beta, and that's not for anything soon, but just to answer that point. So that the possibility to customize the procedural generation is not contradictory with the fact that we could generate a lot of planets if we wanted to. Still, we're not going to spawn like 1,000 solar systems in one block. It's going to be more like gradually we add more, and we're trying to make each of them interesting. At least a few planets are going to be sort of, given a lot of love, so that it's worth going to explore them, and it's really interesting. We don't believe that much in generating billions of planets that are all generic, because you see the pattern at some point. Your brain is so good, to uncover what's actually behind the generation. So it doesn't really work that much. But we can have a mix between generative and custom made and made planets. So that's an answer for the far future, right? At the beginning, we're just going to have one solar system.
And kind of leading into that, there's a question I just saw from Zartane. Will there be environmental hazards at some point, say like solar flares, neutron stars, unusually high gravity, lava? I don't know.
All these are, of course, are possible, but they are not in our priority list. We've been talking about so many things. We need to do on the PvP, on the RDMS, everything. So these kind of things requires a lot of work because we need to do special effects. We need to integrate that in the game universe. So at some point, sure, we will address that. At the end of the day, it depends also on the commercial success of the game. If we have a huge success and we have a lot of money, then we can have a lot of teams that are going to be able to work on more things. So that's at the end of the day, that comes to that. Right now, we have to put priorities on things that are mission critical. And the answer to your question is yes, we can do that. Yes, we would like to do it. I think we share the same kind of dreams and intuition about what we would like to have in a game like that. Now it's all about making things possible, and one step at a time, we're getting closer to the full-fledged vision of what the universe can be.
Ema Noodle is asking, if you take a territory, will you take control of any static cores that are placed on that territory?
No. I know. Well, you might want to comment on that, Baptiste, maybe?
Are we talking in the case of PvP for territory combat?
I believe they're just
I
talking
guess we
about
are.
to place. Well, I guess we already covered that because you need to have the territory to place it.
So maybe,
Yes,
maybe the
that's
question
it.
is, yeah. So if the question is in regards to the situation in which you take a territory, you deploy some constructs on it, and then you take the territory off, essentially that's sort of on you. So the owner of the territory, if he decides to leave and someone else comes and takes that territory, whatever happens. So you may not be able to dig on those territories anymore. Those constructs will still be yours. So if you deploy those constructs in that territory, you can still have access to them. But if the new owner of that territory decides that you don't get to dig there anymore, then that's that's life, I guess. You should have trusted your original territory owner a little bit more, or maybe you got betrayed or whatever happened there.
But we're going to have a look at that because it's also possible that we say that you can't simply take off your territory unit if there are
Maybe
static constructs still there. So we'll have a look at that.
Perfect. So the next question we have is, sorry, there's lots of questions that we've already covered here.
I'm reading
This
also.
is from the player one and the Blondie. One question about dynamic core size. When can we change it? At the moment, we have a cubic core, and we can't have a long ship or higher ship.
Yeah, that's a recurring question also. Yes, we could deal with that at some point. There's of course a limit to the absolute size, as you all understand, I think, because of the game engine and the fact that you need to manage that, in particular if they are physicalized for collisions and so on and so on. So there's a technical limit without going into details. We could probably do better on the overall size of static constructs, but we want to play it safe because if that creates even complex bugs and things, it's really not the moment to do that. Now, on the fact that you create a sort of a volume that you could stretch, or instead of having a cube, that's something we could do. It's not totally easy to do, so that it's something we need to be very careful about again. And well, short answer is for the moment we're stuck with the cubes. It's a good idea. We're gonna look into this at some point, but not a priority for now.
Nothing But Fluff asks, you mentioned garbage collection, sorry. Will there be decay for construct types?
Yeah, there's a well, maybe you want to talk about it because you worked on the spec for that. But there's a lot of work on the garbage collection, and the complicated thing is if you leave the game for how long, how do you get warnings and so on. But we have done a specification. Maybe you want to talk about it. I'm going to stop.
I mean, the basic idea behind garbage collection is sort of figuring out a unified list of rules that allow us, on the one hand, to sort of clean up the universe to make sure that we don't end up with hundreds and potentially millions of abandoned constructs everywhere, which pollute everything and potentially destroy performance. That's something that's quite important to us. And the other hand, feel fair to you guys, the players, so that you're not getting your constructs randomly deleted because our algorithm decided that it didn't need to exist anymore. So there's a huge set of rules. It's defined by whether you have an active subscription or not, defined by a certain number of things. But essentially, if you're inactive, if you're not playing, if you don't touch certain constructs in an extremely long time, the basic idea is that they will tend toward going abandoned, which was that they'll lose their owner, and so they'll be in that position for a little bit where they'll still be in the game world and they'll still exist, but they won't have an owner. And it's during that time that other players can come and salvage it and clean it up, and that's what we want. And then if it happens to be a construct that's totally in the middle of nowhere and no one ever sees it, then eventually it will just be deleted.
And the key thing is that no matter what we do, you're going to keep a blueprint so that it's never, we never destroy information. That's key. And you also have a grace period where you can say, well, okay, just take that construct out of the world. Don't let it for salvaging. I want to save it. And so this is another option that would be given. But yeah, so let's say it's a complex topic, but we need to address it because otherwise there will be a huge amount of waste. And also it provides an interesting gameplay. As you could actually go for scavenging those abandoned constructs. That I think it's pretty cool. So people who just go in the game and for some reason they stop playing, they leave a lot of potential activity for other players, and that's cool.
Yeah,
I kind of like the idea of like ruins to walk through, and
yeah, and there's also this thing about the giant battleship that falls from the orbit because it happened in some of our demos actually where the ship was losing its core unit and it basically became sort of a huge stone falling, and then it crashes and it blows, and that's sort of an abandoned large battleship in a desert or something, completely emergent and genuine. That's really cool.
And speaking of salvaging, Debatania has a question about salvaging. Any plans on recycling elements like small engines, containers, or any lower tier units back to their raw materials?
Go ahead.
I mean, recycling is sort of one of those features that's always on the radar, but never quite important enough to sort of make it into the schedule. I have no doubt that one day we will have recycling, but just when is figuring out priorities for this project is maybe the most challenging thing, and it's something that we want. We're not against it. We think it's a good idea. It's just about figuring out and it's possible that it's not that hard to do, and we can fit it in sometime. But it's.
The tricky part is that we have to make sure that if you have a bunch of ingredients that can be transformed via a recipe into something else, and you can go backward, then there's a sort of equivalence on both sides in terms of volume and mass. Otherwise, that creates a way to shrink in transport. Mass and volume are very important things in that game. So we have to take these questions into consideration. There's another feature that unfortunately is not going to make it for beta, but which is important, is that small ships you should be able to sort of suppose your speeder, for example, you should be able to pocket it, basically. So it becomes a one-time magic blueprint that is in your inventory that you can use to redeploy it a bit later. So you can basically take your speeder in your pocket, go to another planet and deploy it. That's especially important for beginners at the beginning of the game, where you don't necessarily have a huge transporter ship to to navigate your smaller ships to wherever you go. So that's another thing that is also related to that problem of what we just talked about, recompacting things and deploying them after.
Kind of going back to territory units, this one's from Big Edge. I lost the question, but going from memory, he was asking about moving constructs that other people may park on your territory. Will they have control to be able to move or destroy those?
Yes. Is it already going to be for beta? I'm not so sure.
I'm not sure. I'll have to double check on that. I'm not 100%.
But in any case, it's very important that if someone is just polluting your territory by just landing there, you have a way to take them out, basically. So, and again, it's complicated because what if the guy next to you, you put it into his garden, right? And then he put it back into yours. I mean, it's complicated, as always. But the principle is that we want to prevent a form of griefing, which is like you basically sit with huge ships on somebody else's garden, if you want. doesn't seem like something, I mean, it's legit, you can do it, but the person that is a victim of that should have a way to respond to that, right? So that's especially on non-PvP territories where it cannot just shoot you. So there's something that must be done. Don't know if it's going to make it for better, but
I don't think so, no. But
definitely
it's something that we
yeah.
have to do eventually, so it'll come in quickly, I think.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like a very difficult thing to do anyway. Everyone starts in the same location. Yes, more or less. I mean, there are like 10 districts spread around your arc-ship, so in a radius of 10 to 20 kilometers. And you spawn randomly in one of those districts. And there are teleporters to actually reach another district if you want within that circle. So let's say you have two friends, they join the game. One is in District 6, the other one is in District 9. They would like them together. This is a trivial, simple way for one of them to just teleport to the other. That's how it's going to be working.
See a question about
survival aspects, etc. So these are all things we talked about a lot, and they are part of the things that make sense for a game like the universe, but they have been pushed to some distant future because of the work it represents. Yeah.
I saw a question
It would be
about
cool, food, water, toxic planets, toxic atmospheres, and the equipment you need to have to. All this is sort of a natural thing to implement in a game like that. But yeah.
I saw a question about save zones around moons and how that was going to work. Moons will benefit from similar protections than planets. So having an atmosphere or not having an atmosphere isn't necessarily an indicator of whether that entity, that planet, that moon is safe or not, because we could feasibly have planets that don't have atmospheres, and we do have certain planets today that have very small atmospheres or very low gravity. So moons will benefit from those protections, and if you decide that you want to make your home on a moon, at least for beta, you will be protected by an equivalent save zone than you would have on a planet.
Seen quite important question regarding the overall of the graphics. So this is very important, and there are going to be in beta way better textures for the voxels. So you're going to have more options, to make things less flat, basically, on your construct. And as I said, there's a huge work going on with new graphics for all the planets, new assets, new trees, new everything, and it's gorgeous, really. We are not ready yet because of the procedural generation that needs to make use of that sort of beauty that is in potential. We need to actually orchestrate it better. But anyway, so this is going to come a bit later. Globally, expect that the game look is going to progress within the next 6 months, let's say, and definitely already at beta in a significant way. Towards at some point, it's going to be a completely different game. It's going to look really so different and so much better. So sorry, I'm a little bit teasing here, but we'll try to show you some screenshots as soon as we have something to give you a sense of what's going to come. But it's really going to be transforming the game. Now we can't do anything about potentially a construct that is a little bit plain, that is not very worked. Looks like a cube or something a bit Lego-like. There's nothing against Lego, but I mean it's something we hear sometimes. At the end of the day, also, it's up to the players to sculpt their constructs with more details and so on. We can provide better textures. That's what we're going to do. But at the end of the day, you have to sort of put the details in the constructed shapes and so on. That's very important anyway. So the graphics, we don't want to be judged on the graphics, right? It's a bit unfair because there's a lot of gameplay that we think is really cool. So, but we know that this is how it goes. So we're going to put a lot of efforts in that.
You guys have been loaded with some really great questions. Unfortunately, as you know, we have a lot of work to do. So I'm going to let these guys get back to their work. But a couple things. I just wanted to say thank you first off to both JC and Entropy for joining us today. And as always, you guys are great answers. So
Thank you.
some important reminders for those of you joining us today. As you know, beta starts on August 27th. If you're not already part of that, now is the time to get involved. Support packs are going away, as JC mentioned, so make sure you take advantage of those because they are a great deal. The NDA will still stand during our testing up until beta, so please keep that in mind.
I think we've lost. Yeah. Okay. So, well, basically, the NDA is still running until the beta. So just keep that in mind. But at time of the beta, there won't be any NDA. Keep in mind that you have to. You can't show footage from pre NDA lift era because we don't want to show obviously the old graphics and the things that was in the past. It's the whole point of the NDA. So. After beta, you can show whatever you want that is actually taken from the beta or any version after that. So maybe just to conclude, remember to follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. There's a lot of content there. There's a great community website. I really strongly encourage you to sign in there. It's community.dualthegame.com. So that's a place where you can see all the organizations that people have already created, and you can join the forums and so on. So this is really a good place to start. And then that's it. I think we're going to conclude on that. And thank you, everyone. And I'm sorry we couldn't answer all the questions. We're going to do that again, so don't worry. And I hope at least we provided some answers to your burning questions. Thank you.
And everybody
Bye-bye.
give some hearts to Space Mom in the chat. See you guys later.
Bye.